Let's do this. The Cult of Hockey podcast by the faithful and for the faithful. I'm David Staples of the Edmonton Journal, and I'm here tonight with Bruce McCurdy. Hey, Bruce.
Hey, David, how you doing tonight?
Good, I guess. The Oilers lost 5-1 to Vegas.
They lost
Big,
this one.
big game 3. And the number that the two words I'm seeing from Oilers fans describing the Oilers game tonight, Bruce, I've probably seen it 10 times if I've seen it once on Twitter, is hot garbage. That is the consensus opinion of the Edmonton Oilers tonight, hot garbage. And it's fair enough, I think. All right. 2 good things, 2 bad things, and 2 numbers. And because the game was a big game and it was hot garbage, I would argue, we will go with 2 bad things each. Bruce, what's your good thing?
Yeah, my good thing is after one sequence after the second Oilers penalty, which came to Warren Foegele for high sticking in the offensive zone, and this was maybe the best 5-on-6 I've ever seen, where Vegas had the puck in their own end for about 20 seconds. And first of all, who was it who came first?
Ryan?
Ryan came first and threw a hit on a guy, and Vegas cycled the puck around. Then Foegele came in and hit a guy, and then it was still in their zone. And then McLeod came and hit a guy, and then McLeod came and hit another guy, and they were all like, decent hits, and they were, Vegas had the puck, and the Oilers weren't, well, let's try and grab that puck and get the whistles. No, let's go out there and live it up on the forecheck. And then Broberg got a hit before the sequence was done. So the Oilers got 5 hits while Vegas had the puck during the, it wasn't even that extended of a 6-on-5. And I just thought it was kind of fun that they were just going wham, 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 wham. And they had sequences like that in the first period as well as this game. And in fact, Edmonton had 50 hits to 25 for Vegas in this game. So people want to say Edmonton got pushed around in this game. I would say that's probably not the case. They got beat, and they got soundly beat, but they did not get pushed around, and they were bringing the physical game at least till the third period. The third period was hot garbage. It was barely fit to watch.
They didn't get pushed around, and some of Vegas's hits were penalties. They were obvious penalties, and we'll get to that. Mm-hmm. So, of course, complaining about the refs is for losers, but the Oilers did lose tonight. So
yep, we're losers tonight. Might as well complain about the refs.
Well, there was a few key calls, right? Like a few really significant
I'll get
calls.
To those. Yeah.
My bad thing, or no, it's my good thing. Well, my good thing, Bruce, I wrote a post today about he is the Oilers' smartest player, and he just keeps getting better, and that is Derek Ryan. And he was one of the few Oilers tonight who I thought had a passable game, a good game, actually. His line was actually not that bad, him and Foegele and McLeod. And the first goal got the Oilers rolling. It just felt like, here we go. And just a fantastic play, stretch pass from Ryan McLeod up to Ryan, breaks down the wing, puts it on hard at the net, and Foegele goes hard to the net and jams it past Laurent Brossoit. It was a fantastic, greasy goal by the third line, exactly the way you'd like to start the game. They played well the rest of the game. Not many problems that I recall off the top of my head when they were on the ice, but that goal is typifying the kind of effort that Derek Ryan is giving in these playoffs. And the most interesting stat, like to show his that he's a sharp guy, is you won't find Derek Ryan overstaying his welcome on the ice, Bruce, or causing a grade A shot against with a bad line change. And I totaled it up, and the 2 leaders for the past 2 seasons for grade A bad line changes that lead to grade A shots against were Ryan Nugent-Hopkins and Leon Draisaitl with 7 each. These are both really smart hockey players, obviously, but they get a little offensive focus now and then, I think. Derek Ryan doesn't have that luxury, of course. He can't be coasting off the ice when the other team's heading up ice, and he doesn't. He hasn't, not once since he's came to the Oilers has he been caught out on a bad line change that has led to a grade A shot against. And most of the other Oilers have 3 or 4 or 5 of them, and again, Draisaitl and Nuge with 7 each. So he's such a he can still win a face-off. He's a great. He's okay on the penalty kill still. He's really strong defensively at even strength. He's just always in position. And again, he doesn't score a lot. He doesn't put up a lot of points. This is, I think, his second point of the playoffs. But he does so many good things that he has become a difference maker for the Oilers in these playoffs. And his line has really come together, and they held up their end of the bargain tonight.
Yeah, he's strong. That line has been pretty strong, I think, throughout the playoffs. Fogle, McLeod, and Ryan. They played together quite a lot. And tonight, they haven't hardly scored any goals, and they hardly had any scored against them. Tonight, there was one of each while they were out there. So I think they all wound up even on the night. I'm just checking that as, yeah, all 3 were even. And there was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Oilers who were even, and 1 who was +1 in this game, Philip Broberg. Broberg. He's got the magic touch.
Sneaks in there. Fogle did make a mistake tonight on the goal against, and we're going to get to that because it was a fairly major mistake that he was involved in as well. Yeah. All right, Bruce, we are on. There's not a whole other lot of good things to talk about. In this game, Bruce, the Oilers, the grade A shots were Vegas with 19, the Oilers with 14. But even more telling, the subset of 5 alarm shots. Grade A shots go in 25% on average. 5 alarm shots.
The 5 alarm, yeah.
And 5 alarm shots are a subset of that, and they go in 33% of the time. So, if the grade A shots, if you subtract the 5 alarm subset, they go in about 20% of the time. So there's a huge difference between, you're just what's considered a grade A shot and then a 5 alarm shot under our system. And that was 9-4 for Vegas, 9-4, and all of the Vegas 5 alarm shots were at even strength. So this was a total rout, this game at even strength, and not good. What's your?
My first bad thing is actually it's one long shift in the first period because the 2 bad things happened maybe 60 or 75 seconds apart, and that was 2 what I saw as very possible injuries to Oilers. One that I think almost everyone saw was Zach Hyman coming down the wing and Nicholas Hague stepping up to him with the legs spread wide. And to me, it didn't look quite like knee on knee. It looked more like thigh on thigh. And Hyman went down hard, and he struggled to get up to his feet. And then he kept in the play, and then he almost fell down before he went to the bench. And I thought, And then he toughed it out, and he came back out there for a subsequent shift and stayed out there even through the third period, which kind of surprised me. But I think maybe Charlie Horse there, he was struggling with his skating stride, I thought, thereafter. And then about at the end of that fairly long sequence, there was a play where Evan Bouchard went behind his own net to collect the puck, and he got creamed from behind by Howden. Brett Howden of Vegas, and he basically smacked his face right against the glass. And Howden came away with the puck, and Bush was kind of like, in the corner, and I'm sort of saying, "What are you doing, Bush? Get on him, get on him." And then when I watched the replay, I know what you're doing. You're trying to get the cobwebs out because you just got gonged. And from that moment, basically through the rest of the game, Bouchard had a pretty tough night, defensively and even offensively, where, a couple times he started thinking, well, maybe that wasn't quite the right decision. And I just think he got his bell rung a little bit, and I hope it's just a little bit, because he's been such a huge player for Edmonton in these playoffs. And Hyman, who had such a great game last game, that certainly took him off his stride, so to speak. And they didn't lose either guy, but I think both guys got banged up on the same play, and at the time the score was 1-1, and the game had been, I think, if anything, a little bit positive for the Oilers, but Vegas took it over around that time, and they started throwing their weight around and with impunity, and that play had a couple of casualties, so that was a bad thing, and we'll see in the longer run how bad of a thing. I wouldn't be shocked if Hyman was he might be able to play next game, but he might not be 100% for a while.
Wouldn't be surprised if the Oilers go with 4 lines next game. And maybe Hyman's not in the game at all, and it's Holloway and Shore or something like that. Haig had his legs very wide on that play.
Yep.
And someone has their legs that wide, I think that's a penalty. That's a dangerous play. But
where's the guy supposed to go?
It was a very fast develop. Like, those are often pretty hard to call. The one on Howden cross-checked Evan Bouchard, cross-checked him right in the back, right through the numbers, driving his head into the boards.
Class, but yes.
That is an absolutely amateur hour. That is a shameful thing for a referee to miss. He was looking right at it. This is an easy call to make in the NHL. It breaks a number of rules, including rules around the whole concept of calling penalties is to keep people safe playing the game. Yeah. It's fair play, but it has this other purpose of keeping people safe, and that was just a reckless, dirty play. And for the referee to miss that was shameful. That was a shameful mistake on his part. And I don't know who the refs were, but
they were Jean Hebert and Kyle Riemann.
The one on Yamamoto,
they had a tough game.
The one on Yamamoto that people were up in arms about was very fast, and you could see them maybe missing that one because it was so fast. But there's no missing someone getting pitchfork into the end boards from behind through the numbers with the cross check.
So especially when he comes off the glass and he's shaking his head and he's kind of, while the play carries on. I mean, sometimes you can tell by how the player reacts as to how he's been hit. And we'll get into that Yamamoto one in a minute.
I'd love to hear their explanation for not calling that penalty on.
You never will, David. The NHL referees have there's no relationship with the fans at all. Nobody ever speaks on their behalf. No one ever comes out and says, we screwed up this call and this is what happened. And, there's never any feedback loop. It's just all the fans getting mad. And the only feedback you ever get is some coach finally loses his shit on the ref. And the next thing you hear is that the league has fined the guy $25,000. And, I was going to say it enriches the league, but I actually think it goes into some fund or other swear jar or something. But you hear about the consequences to the coach, or occasionally even to the player who calls out the referees, but there's never nothing. There's never anything coming from the league saying, we missed a really bad one there and we're sorry. We're not going to make it up because we don't do make-up calls in this league. No, never. But we do admit we missed a call. It would be nice sometimes.
I can just see the Vegas GM was a pretty aggressive guy getting on the phone after the last game because there probably were
some stuff.
And there might have been some marginal calls against Vegas. Like, in the balance of things, the Oilers probably got the balance of the refereeing there in that game, and just bitterly complaining to the NHL, and maybe a discussion with the refs. Well, it's got to just make sure it's like they're in a scoring chance position before you call a penalty on the Oilers or on Vegas this time, and because otherwise it's just a penalty every time. You've been watching all season long, Bruce. That was a penalty. How can that not? It's a first period. It's because they're so hyper about the Oilers power play and they just won't give any. They just seemingly made up their mind not to call obvious penalties tonight. Very frustrating. What is it's my bad thing. I was just railing on your bad thing. Yep. I'm going to actually get 3 because I hammered the refs on that one.
Okay.
Bruce, all that said, Vegas won tonight's game, I think, because they were the hungrier team. And you could sure see that hunger on their first goal and throughout. Kevin Bieksa made the point after the game, and I think Kevin Bieksa is the best analyst by far in the NHL right now. Like, we don't get Ray Ferraro anymore, but Bieksa has that kind of Ferraro level understanding of the game that even a lot of players don't have, or at least they can't articulate it. He can. He really understands when goals against happen, who screws up. And he just made the point that of 4 of the 5 goals were pretty nothing plays and 5-on-5 plays, and the Oilers just couldn't defend basic 5-on-5 plays. There was only one that was a 2-on-1 rush, and the other ones were just that. The Oilers couldn't execute fundamental defense out of non-threatening situations 5-on-5. And it came down to both fundamental play, but also what I would call hunger. And on the first goal, Marchessault gets the puck. It's kind of bouncing around a little bit, bounces high in the air off CC's stick, and then CC fights for the puck and he loses the puck. Goes to Marchessault, who puts it at the net, and Skinner kind of punts out a bit of a bad rebound, I thought. This is one thing I've noticed with him. He's a little tentative on when the puck comes hard to the net, like just smothering that puck or getting quickly on top of it or batting it out. Anyway, he just put it out a little bit and Marchessault jumped on it. But Nick Bjugstad, that was his man. Yep. And he just got on the wrong side of it. He just was not boxing him out. He was in one place and his check was in another place. He was missing in action, wandering in the red light zone, not covering anyone, not covering a passing lane. And Marchessault, instead of getting blocked from going to the net or hammered to the ice on the rebound play, he's getting the rebound and he's putting it in the net. And it's because he was hungrier in that moment to score that goal than Nick Bjugstad was to defend that goal. And I think we saw this repeatedly tonight. The Vegas was more desperate for the win. They just were. I think they were somewhat humiliated in the last game. It's like
the coach called them out too.
Yeah, and they responded. Like it wasn't one of those situations where they give up on the coach or there's like they must have felt it. They felt it themselves.
He didn't say they needed 18 heart transplants, David.
He did not. And there was an NHL coach this year. There was a couple like Bruce Boudreau. There's a couple that were pretty bad in that regard. What's his name in Winnipeg after they lost too? Yeah. So it was. I just saw that as like the Hunger Games, and the Oilers lost it tonight on that play and on others.
Yeah, my son came up to me afterward. I was watching it, and I said to my wife, as I'm prone to do, it was a down low 3-on-3, and Bjugstad couldn't contain his man. I thought Nurse had his man, which was Barbashev. Also, like all 6 of them were right around the blue paint, and Nurse had his man, but and Ceci was trying to protect against Eichel, who took the original shot, and then Marchessault slipped through Bjugstad and managed to get a stick on the rebound and tap it in. And Kevin came upstairs and said, Twitter's just losing it on Nurse after that.
Nurse?
Yeah, and I'm going, well, maybe so, because they lose it on Nurse quite a lot. But to me, he had his man, and, it was Bjugstad. And I'm a Bjugstad fan. I'm constantly complimenting him here when he had a tough, especially first period tonight. And on that play, he got beat.
It makes my head hurt that people are blaming Nurse on that one.
He's a little over his head, Bjugstad, at 2C. They had to move him up there. And, plays like that. And you've got, Vegas with their first line out there of Eichel and Marchessault and Barbashev. And they just were able to, beat Edmonton to the puck, and it was Bjugstad who got beat. I got nothing against his effort, but he did get beat on that play for sure.
This is one of my, if I have any complaint about Jay Woodcroft at this point, it's I don't know, he does have a third line, but you'd like to have the third line you could put out there against their best line. And I know that doesn't happen so much in the NHL anymore,
right?
Where you have that third line, but if you can develop that, like it's such an advantage to your team. Like if you could put out, and I think they could, I don't know, Ryan McLeod has struggled now and then on defense. So I'm not sure he'd be any better than Nick Bjugstad, but Foegele and Ryan can certainly get it done. And, I just wish they had developed that line somewhere along the way this season so they could have that option of going with those guys at home against the other team's top line and just nullify them, just play them to a stalemate. But they don't seem to have that. And
Oh, one thing I didn't see coming was, usually Edmonton has the three top six centers, right? McDavid, Draisaitl, Nugent Hopkins. And always one of them plays, every once in a while, they go 1, 2, 3 at center. And you even got one of them, Nuge, playing bottom six. But most nights, almost every night, you have two of them playing center and one playing wing, either Draisaitl or Nuge on the wing. Well, right now, they got it set up that neither Dry nor Nuge is playing center. They're both on the wing. They got McDavid at 1C, and now they got Bukestad at 2C. And I'm not at all convinced he's the best choice. Maybe they like his defensive play and they think he's strong enough defensively. They're using him on the PK a lot. And, he obviously has his uses, face-offs and such in the D zone has been a strength. But 2C is a tall order. 3C is a tall enough order for a $450,000 player.
Yeah. As for blaming Nurse on that first goal against, he totally had his man tied up. And it's not like there's any wiggle room in front of the net. It's man on man, and it's a battle. And you've got to cover your man. You can't really worry about the other guys, because if you leave your man, he's the one who's going to score. So to blame Nurse, who had it covered off, it is not his fault. It's Nick Bukestad, who's as I just said, wandering around in the red light zone. Who was he covering? That's what I would ask. What was his job? Ask those people who are blaming Nurse. Now we're going to blame Nurse shortly.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, he does make his mistakes following the wrong guy, but I don't think it happened on that particular goal. Yeah. So my second bad thing is the second Vegas goal. And this was the decisive, turned out to be the game winner in the last minute of the first period. And this really was an injury and insult type of goal. And the injury, of course, is the actual goal. That's what really hurts. The insult was the high stick from Eichel checking Yamamoto at the far end, 190 feet from where the goal would ultimately be scored. But it was I thought, as a real shiver me timbers high stick. He played the body and the stick came up and just bang and just straightened up Yamamoto. It hit him in the face, it hit him in the shield, and it just sort of stopped him in his tracks, and he was shaking his head there. He reacted as Bouchard had. He acted exactly like a guy who just unexpectedly struck in the head. Hey, refs, maybe something happened. Maybe that guy just got unexpectedly struck in the head. Maybe. Anyway, I don't want to crap on the refs here because it's just part of it. But this was part of a pretty big play. And what happened, if you roll the tapes, Howie, roll the tape about 1 second after Yamamoto gets smacked like that, Bukestad gets cross-checked down to the ice, also behind the Vegas net. Now we've got two guys down, or at least it's somewhat disabled, 200 feet away from where the puck's going. And the puck goes up the ice, and eventually it is, in fact, Jack Eichel who sets up the goal to Marchessault again. But it is Eichel who's got the puck, and it is Yamamoto who's sort of trailing the play about 15 feet behind Eichel, having taken a second or two to recover his senses. And even after they score, Yamamoto's feeling his face. They zero in on him. His eyes are watering. Is he crying because he gave up a goal? Or maybe he took a sudden unexpected blow to the head. I'm thinking probably the latter. And so I was mildly upset with the Stripes at that moment. And because that had been I saw 3 dirty hits that at least shook up Hyman, Bouchard, and Yamamoto, all in the first period. Nothing got called. Evander Kane saw it too. He took a silly run at Pietrangelo, and that did get called. And that was not a good penalty by Kane. But I can kind of understand his frustration at that moment. And all that said, I'm not blaming the refs for the loss, because Vegas took over this game in the second period, mostly at 5-on-5, and they dominated. And they won this second period like the Oilers won the first period the other night, and they won this game like the Oilers won that game the other night. Better team won.
First, they had it was in the end of the first period that they take over. Actually, the last 5 grade A shots of the first period are all
after those
Vegas
hits
shots. Yeah, after Brossois goes out, I think it's On it's funny because it looks like it's going to be an odd man rush on that goal. It does turn out to be kind of a 2-on-2 situation down low as it all breaks down. Unfortunately, it isolates Jack Eichel on Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. And Nugent-Hopkins just gets deked out of his hockey pants on that one. Like Eichel just freezes him and goes around him and whips the puck over. And again, I was talking about the hunger. Nurse is slow to cover Marchessault going to the net. And he is kind of tripped up. It's a fast play. It's a difficult play. Like these things happen very fast. But the Vegas attacker got there first. Yep. He was the one who got there first. Darnell Nurse didn't have it. Like he wasn't in the right spot to block his body from even getting there. And that was just Marchessault just being so much more aggressive, going to the net, hungry for that goal, and it paid off with him scoring. So Nugent Hopkins and Nurse are veteran hockey players. If the Oilers are going to win the Stanley Cup this year, the veterans have got to play better defense than that. And they won't win it if that doesn't happen. Which brings me to my own second bad thing, Bruce. This is the third goal where Zach Whitecloud, the game's still close here. It's anyone's game. And it's 12
this moment.
8 minutes into the third.
Second.
And it's into the second. Oh. And Nurse made a play that just drove me crazy. A little, and in retrospect, a little less. I heard, I went back and listened to what the people more expert on hockey than me, like the panel was saying, because I really do respect Bieksa and Dallas Aikens. And Aikens was saying it was a failure of communication. Essentially, the puck comes out it's in the offensive end, or the Oilers' defensive end, and the Oilers are defending. It's 5-man versus 5-man hockey. And the puck comes out towards the point, and Nurse is on his guy. And Fogel's out there covering the defenseman. And the puck comes back to the point, and then he makes kind of a back pass, and the defenseman is able to go down the wing. And both Fogel and Nurse are caught up high. Nurse is right outside of the Oilers' zone as Whitecloud starts his rush. He's like 10,000 miles from where he needs to be to stop Whitecloud. Now, Aikens was saying there's a failure of communication here. I guess Nurse probably should have yelled switch. If he's intending to follow his man right out there, I think it's incumbent on him as the person who's going to be tracking outside the zone, yell switch as loud as he can. Or Fogel can notice it and then switch over and cover off Whitecloud. What happens is they get tangled up together, and Whitecloud has a clear lane right to the net. But Bruce, I just think Nurse, it's another situation where they're not scoring from out there. They are in no danger of scoring from out there. There's just no danger. Why are you pursuing a player that high up? Like, maybe Fogel could have switched and saved the day, but that kind of aggression on defense, rather than just at some point saying, okay, he's headed back to his own zone. Like, I'm not going to track him out of my own zone. I'm just going to back off right now and cover my own defensive position, hold the fort, hold the front. And I don't know what his instructions are in that situation. Like what the coaches, like maybe the coaches say, stick with your man, like strict one-on-one. But I think it's kind of a one-on-one zone. And if a guy's flying right out there, just hold back a bit. Stay in your position. And if he had done that, there's no goal. Or if Fogel had switched, there's no goal. But a switch is a kind of a complicated play in hockey. Like, that has to happen fast.
Is it a switch, though, if Nurse stays with his man, that he expects Fogel to stay with his man, who is Whitecloud? Or is it a switch because they're switching off zones that they're covering? Like the lingo, sometimes I'm not quite sure which they use. Anyway, there was a lack of communication. I think Fogel got legitimately and legally picked on that play because the path of Nurse and was it Amadio? Was that the guy who was chasing?
Yeah,
or Riley Smith was one of them guys. And but he chased him high in the zone and then even higher. And as you say, literally his skates went out of the defensive zone as Whitecloud gathered up the puck. And now because Fogel's been picked and he's scrambling, but he's taken the bad route to Whitecloud and he's behind him and Nurse is completely out of frame, as is Amadio, but he's not the one who scored now, is he? And the guy just comes right up the left side into the left face-off circle where Nurse should be. And guess what? There's nobody there. and he just walks right into the face-off dot. And Cody Ceci, who's trying to guard the slot, he tries to engage a split second too late, so he doesn't affect the shot. And honestly, David, I still think that shot needs to be saved. You got Zach Whitecloud shooting from the dot, picking the short side on your goalie who's back deep in his net, and there's still a seam on his short side for that shot to beat him. Like that he's got to make that stop. To me,
maybe
it's an A shot. It's a great A shot, but he should stop it.
Maybe it's if you think he should stop it, then it's a grade B shot.
Well, I think they should stop 80% of grade A shots.
Well, that's
that
true.
was one of those ones. They needed a save. They did not get a save. Let's put it that
fair
way.
enough. They did need a save, but that said, like, he is an NHL caliber hockey player. You give a player that much time, like he had all the time in the world to go in there and pick his spot. That's dangerous. Like, you can't have that even with the worst player, the worst shooter in the NHL. If you give a guy that much time, those guys at the NHL level can pick a corner. So I think it might, instead of, I don't know what the proper terminology for nurse to yell at Fogle might have been, like cover, maybe, like cover me, like I'm going for it. Like, but I just think actually, I would love to be in the Oilers video room where they describe, okay, here's what you should have done on that play. Maybe they would describe it just like Dallas Eakins did. Like, you got to communicate. Darnell, if you're going to go, you got to yell cover or something. And then you got to get back. That's probably what it would be. And it would be okay then to get out of position like that. But I'm just left with the feeling like I've seen this too many times, Bruce, where he has gone a wandering from his position because he's such a fine defender when he just keeps it simple.
The game come to you, Darnell. You don't have to chase the guy right out of the zone. Just don't.
Exactly. Less is more, as I wrote in a recent blog post. Less is more, man.
I think we've written that post every year for the last 6 years.
Yeah, you're right. Right. It's like watch some Nick Lidstrom, man. Like, go watch how that guy played defense. He didn't run around all over the place. He wasn't chasing guys out over the blue line. He was holding his position because he knows where they score the goals from. They don't score the goals from out there. They score the goals from charging in unmolested and having a shot, like, where they can pick the corner. He figured that out, and he just made sure they couldn't do that.
Just install one of those Nick Lidstrom 500 terahertz processors, and it's all good. I mean, that guy, it's no fair comparing anybody to that guy. He just processed the game at such a high level. But yes, that's what you want. That is the ideal.
But offensively, he did at the high level. Defensively, I think a lot of defensemen actually, as they get older, start to process the game at a high level. A lot of them, I don't think Lidstrom was unusual, probably unusual too in his defensive acumen. But you see lots of defensemen actually, like Ekholm, for instance. They start to really figure it out, and they're not perfect necessarily, but
to my eye, Ekholm had a tough game tonight.
He did tonight, so it's a bad example using him tonight. But overall, before tonight, I think it's a pretty good example.
Yes,
and he's just holding the fort, and he still makes mistakes too, but it's not from being, go chase the tennis ball kind of mistakes.
Yeah, well, to my eye, the three best Oiler defensemen on this night were Brett Kulak, Vincent Desharnais, and Philip Broberg. And the top four all had a pretty tough time of it.
They did. All right.
Bottom three was actually pretty good. So there's that. I mean, silver linings, folks. I mean, we're not going to give everybody a 0 like one of our dear readers suggested on Twitter, with a couple of expletive bombs on top of it.
Oh, man, Oiler fans were mad tonight, and I was mad.
Well, I was actually resigned early. Like, nope, this is not a game we're going to win. It's a long series. Last series we lost game 3, bounced back. Last year we had a situation where Oilers won 6-0 and 8-2 on consecutive games, and then they lost the next game 4-0. I mean, sometimes you just flip a switch, or both teams flip a switch. Or when they beat San Jose Sharks in 2017, where they lost game 1 and they won 4 of the last 5. The game they lost was 7-0. They just got completely destroyed in one of the games, but it's only one loss. Like this is kind of my go-to. And really bad losses, they made enough mistakes tonight to lose 3 or 4 games, and they only lost one. So let's move on. Vegas responded to the challenge. Now it's Edmonton's turn to respond to that challenge. And I'm reasonably confident that, it's 2 good teams like this. They're in a tough spot down 2-1, but they're not done. I mean, it's just they got beat tonight.
Listen,
now it's their turn to take the ball and play a lot better, and they can. We know it.
This is not the Colorado Avalanche of last year, right? This is a team they can beat, and this is a team they should beat. I think.
I don't know. It's a good team, but Oilers need their top players performing at top levels, which I don't think they got tonight. And they need their top power play performing at its level, which they didn't really get a shot tonight until the game was in the bag. So
yeah, but I appreciate, Bruce, your stoic resolve there. I think it's admirable. And in an hour or two, I'll compose myself and get to that spot, place myself.
Mm-hmm.
But when we get to the numbers, I'll tell you why I am a little more worried than I've been throughout the playoffs. We'll get to that. So let's your number first of all.
Oh yeah, number. I'm going to go with 39, which is the number of games that the Oilers have played since the last time some team held them to 1 goal.
Wow.
Can you believe it? 38 straight games they scored 2 or more goals. So not only did they not get shut out, they didn't get held to 1 goal for all that tremendous length of time. It was just after the long All-Star and team break at the beginning of February when they lost 2-1 in Philadelphia in a goaltenders duel between Carter Hart and Stuart Skinner. And that was the last time. I mean, you got to go way back in the memory banks to even find that game if you can. And it didn't really stand out other than the Oilers couldn't. It was just a defensive goaltender type struggle. But not that this game was particularly that. It's a rare thing for Edmonton to get held below 2, and I don't imagine it'll happen again anytime this series would be my bet.
They haven't had a stinker game in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And teams that go far in the playoffs don't have stinker games in the playoffs very much. But we'll give them one, and hopefully they'll bounce back. I mean, the Oilers are an interesting team. They're used to spotting teams some goals and then finding a way to come back, and they just couldn't get it done tonight. And I agree, it didn't look like it was going to happen tonight, even when it was 3-1.
Yeah.
Vegas was just dominant through that stretch of play, and I give them a lot of credit. I think they were embarrassed, and they came out and showed the Oilers, like, you won't do that to us again. We're gonna play super hard, and we're gonna be hungry. And my number, Bruce, is the number that gives me concern in this series, and it's about the even strength dominance of the Vegas Golden Knights. There have been stretches in games, especially games 1 and 3, where they got on the forecheck, and they started to force errors on the Oilers. This is what the Oilers have numbers, but just through effort and technique, they're forcing mistakes, and they're creating goals out of nothing, and they're creating 5-alarm chances, these 33% chances out of nothing. In the LA Kings series, at even strength, the Oilers had 32 5-alarm shots, and the Kings had 22. So the Oilers were clearly dominant. Like it's they're getting out of 5-alarm shots a game, they're getting 3, and LA's getting 2 of them. So it's a significant advantage for Edmonton. And in this series so far, it's the at even strength, the Oilers have 11 5-alarm shots, and Vegas has 21 at even strength. 11 to so almost doubling them.
Mm-hmm.
That is a really bad trend. That is really not good, and that is worrisome. The Oilers have got to they're going to have to shake things up. I don't know what they're going to do. I wonder how many of those 11 5-alarm shots have been from McDavid and Draisaitl. Probably a fair number of them. You can't it's not working. What they're doing right now at even strength, they're going to have a major change here. They're going to have to figure this out. Or they could come back and just with renewed effort and vigor. But as you say, there's something, the second line isn't functional right now. The third line is.
They've been getting creamed in shot metrics the whole time, really.
Got to change it up. You can't have that. They can't have that line. So they're going to have to figure this out and get some different line combinations out there, and at least saw off the 5 alarm shots next game at even strength, or they will not win that game.
So it was 21-11. That was 12-7 before tonight's game, because it was 9-4 tonight for Vegas. So they've been holding the advantage throughout in 5 alarm shots.
Correct.
Of course, last game Edmonton struck on the power play 3 times, and they called off the Dogs fairly early in that game. But
well, the first game, Bruce, it was 7-3 at even strength for Vegas for 5 alarm shots. Then the second game, it was 5-4. Yeah, and this game 9-4. So there's not been a game yet where the Oilers have had more of the most dangerous scoring chances at even strength. So in terms of a trend that's worrisome in this series, like last series was Korpisalo. They had to solve Korpisalo. They had to start beating that guy. This is what they've got to get on top of. This is what they've got to surmount, and it won't be easy. This is a team-wide issue, obviously. Can they do it? I think they can do it, but we'll see.
Got to solve Aiden Hill too, David. He's played like 70 minutes in 2 games and hasn't given up a goal yet.
He looked good
tonight.
His
1,000 save percentage against the Oilers. He looked okay, and he was solid, and he got. On the other hand, this was going to be my bad thing. I'll sneak it in here. Laurent Brossoit getting hurt. That was just kind of a heartbreaker. This guy's former Oil King, former Oiler, finally getting his chance at the playoffs at age 30, and he played the first 8 games, started the 9th, and then he got hurt and it did not look good when he went off. So I expect we'll be seeing Aiden Hill on next game, Wednesday night.
He had a .915 save percentage in 27 games. I'm surprised we didn't see Aiden Hill from the start of the series. Actually,
that's a pretty strong save percentage too. I mean, their goalies have been musical chairs because Robert Lehner has been out all year with a malady of some sort, and Laurent Brossoit had double hip surgery last off season, so he came back and played in the minors, and then he got called up when the young guy, Logan Thompson, he got hurt, and he's still hurt. And Aiden Hill was getting games here and there. And when Logan Thompson went out, that's when LB got his shot. And now looks like he's out again. So I mean, they've really had a tough run of fortune with their netminders. I think they used 5, and Leonard never even got into a game, and he's the guy that's the biggest cap hit of a lot of them. So. It's to their credit that their team was able to, finish first with the chaos that was going on in the crease. But very tough for LB. And I will say this, when they panned to the Edmonton fans, many of them giving him a standing ovation as he left the ice, I was heartened. I thought, yeah, he deserves that from this city. So
didn't look good, eh? It looked like
it didn't look good.
Looked like he pulled a groin, or maybe it's one of his hips or something. Like it looked like. Yeah, all of those goalies, Bruce, had really good save percentages. Thompson, .915, Hill, .915, Brossoit, .927 in the regular season. The only one who didn't in 10 games was Jonathan Quick, .901 save percentage.
Oh, yeah, I even forgot about Jonathan Quick. Yeah, maybe he's the guy with the biggest cap hit. But they only pay half of it. But anyway, it's been a hard run for them, and they've been finding these insurance goalies. But for LB in particular, this is maybe the one shot that he would have gotten his career to take a big run at it.
Maybe he's okay.
Well, let's hope, because I'm rooting for the Oilers to win the series, obviously, but I root for old players, former Oilers, former Oil Kings, players that I've come in contact with one way or another, and he's one of those guys. He's all of those things, and so it's kind of painful to see him leave without seeing it through.
Well, Bruce, let's leave it there. Thanks for talking tonight.
thanks for listening, everyone. Let's get them in Game 4.
And in the meantime, and in between times, this has been another edition of the Cult of Hockey podcast.